So, Mr. Superior, you've mentioned in your resume that you've done a project. All right. Can you briefly explain about the project, the steps undertaken in that?
Well, Mr. Nitin, the project that I worked on was for a customer who was dealing with the cars sales. We have a lot of new companies coming up where we have second sales basically. So for that particular company, I was assigned to predict the mileage of a particular vehicle, provided the features of the particular car. So I was given the data by the client, and I used various machine learning, supervised learning techniques like regression, multiple linear regression, and I tried to measure the accuracy using rmsc calculations. And I tried to do some kind of a transformations, tried four different transformations, and I identified the best model among those four, and we shared that particular code by doing the deployment using the model at the client side. And the accuracy that I got was 95% approximately on the test data that I have obtained from the client.
Once again, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. I won't say it's pretty much self-explanatory. This was a very common answer that we often get. People immediately jump into the explanation of the project with an assumption that the person who's asking the question has a fair understanding of what the project is all about. And he's the one who probably has given the project. So I think we will first hear Mr. Inferior, actually the bright bulb, but Mr. Inferior, his response for the same question, and then we will discuss about the do's and don'ts.
Yeah. So thank you so much for asking me the question pertaining to the project that I've worked upon. And first of all, we have done this project for one of the leading clients from United States of America. And we try to understand the business problem from the client. And the client was saying that a lot of people were taking the loans and they were running away without repaying. They were absconding. And they are called as defaulters, like you're already aware of. And we have then formulated the objectives and constraints and documented a project charter in which we clearly listed that the business problem was to minimize the fraud happening. And in the due course, when we brainstormed, we felt that we can just simply build a prediction model and then give a prediction saying that, hey, there's 90% probability that someone would default. And based on that, you would reject the loan. If we continue rejecting the loans in this way, we also understood that profits would shrink, profits of the company, of the bank. Hence, we put a constraint saying that while we try to minimize the fraud, we also need to maximize the profits. So now it gave a different dimension to think through as a data scientist. Post that, we have done a research to understand what are the similar kind of projects we have solved. And we figured out that in the past, we have done one similar kind of a project. So we looked at what are the various features that we have used to solve the business problem. And we requested for the data, for a similar kind of data from the client, and the client has supplied us that data. And that data, they did not give it to us in an Excel format or CSV format, because then the data has to be stored on your computers, and that's against the data privacy norms. So they have given us access to your SQL server. They were using PostgreSQL, in which they had the data. And we have, using the permissions that they have provided to those variables, we could pull that data into our Python, and then we have done the analysis. We have done the data pre-processing. We have spent majority of the time identifying the outliers, cleaning the data, performing imputation, because there were certain values which were missing. And then we have also normalized the data, given that different variables were of different scales. Post that, we got into the process of building models. And we understand that we need to give interpretation to this client because the client was from financial services insurance. So we ended up building a decision tree model and logistic regression model. Both of these have a lot of interpretability in that. We can explain the end results to the customers who have applied for the loan. If you're rejecting a loan, we can say why you have rejected, just in case they come back asking for additional information on why their loan was rejected. But this alone didn't solve the purpose. We were able to meet the business objectives. Our model was 90% accurate, all wonderful. But then client put a constraint saying that you need to also maximize the profits. So we built another model, which is called as survival analytics, which predicted on not just whether a person will default or not. Of course, we have built decision tree and logistic regression to say what is the probability of someone defaulting. But the survival analytics has also told us after how many installments a person will default. Then we liaise with the customer. We understand their business logic. And they're saying that if there is more than 50% probability of someone defaulting, then they would reject the loan. They have given us those business rules. If the probability of someone defaulting is less than 50%, they would approve the loan. Once we got these business logics, we implemented the business logic also into the code, into the Python program, and thereby the customer need not even look at the result and take a decision. The moment the probability of someone defaulting is greater than 50%, would automatically reject the loan. And once we have done this, we have deployed the model using Heroku, which is a deployment platform. Using that, we have deployed the model because the end user wanted a kind of interface, web interface. Obviously, I cannot give the code and expect the client to run the Python code, right? So there, the end users were supposed to give just the inputs and click on submit, and they would see the results for themselves in the application. That was shared with the loan department. Post that, as a performing organization who is doing the project for the client, we had an additional responsibility of generating more business also. And I work for XYZ company, right? And XYZ company backed this project from the client. And what we have done is we have told to the client that we would be doing the monitoring and maintenance of the project on an ongoing basis. If at all the accuracy is dropping, we would retrain the model. And we told that once in every quarter, once we get the new data, we will again retrain the model so that the accuracy jumps from 90% to 91, 92, so on and so forth. And for this monitoring and maintenance, we have used a tool called as Evidently, which is a tool which is used for monitoring and maintaining the model. And this is how we have handled the entire project. And we have used Crisp MLQ framework to handle the entire project end to end. Thank you so much. If you have any further questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Absolutely right. And as quite evident by the detailed explanation, which has covered the entire Crisp MLQ framework, right from the word go, the first phase to the last phase, everything has been covered in that step by step, right from the business objective all the way, to the deployment, monitoring, and maintenance. So all the phases were nicely covered. The client is not expected to know Crisp MLQ. You don't have to teach Crisp MLQ. We follow Crisp MLQ. Therefore, the first phase of Crisp MLQ, that attitude or that focus wasn't done. The whole thing was explained. And subsequently, it was told that what we have done works on the Crisp MLQ framework. So you're not putting the interviewer in a defensive spot. What is this person talking of that I do not know? But at the same time, you have explained everything in threadbare detail. Now, when you give explanations in so much detail, it is difficult for the interviewer to ask follow-up questions about the same topic, and they generally tend to move to the next. But if you give incomplete or incorrect answers or answers that have more detail, that gives them an opportunity for them to, grill you further into that, and that is where you get stuck up. So that was an amazing thing. Thank you so much, Mr. Inferior,